Our first guest is Erin Meezan. Unfortunately, she's not physically here, but technology-wise, I think we figured out for her to be digitally here. And so I'm going to send you over to Erin in here in just a second. Erin is at Interface, and she's been an incredible champion for us. All right, Erin, we're ready for you.
Excellent. Okay. So I'm going to, do you want me to say who I am and what I do, or have you guys done that?
No, please do, Erin.
Well, hello, everyone. My name is Erin Meezan. I'm the Chief Sustainability Officer at a company called Interface. And mostly I just spend my time trying to figure out things that we've never done before. And without the help of my team and people like Janine and some of our outside collaborators, I'm pretty sure we'd never be able to do anything that we're doing right now. So I'm super sorry that I couldn't be there, but really excited to give you guys kind of a little 10-minute overview on our story in this and how we're thinking about this working. So quick check-in, is the audio okay? Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So our story starts necessarily with Ray Anderson, the founder of Interface. And this is one of my favorite pictures of Ray. And it starts here because he was the one who not only built this amazing business, but he was the one who 23 years in decided that he would have a different vision for what Interface did. And Interface has spent about 20 years focusing not just on what we call Mission Zero now externally, which is about reducing the impact of the business, but it always was about first reducing the impact of the business and then becoming restorative. So we've spent about 23 years figuring out how to get to zero and had started the journey to really explore. And that vision for how do we move to the next step, how do we move to a more restorative model, really kicked off in earnest in 2016 when we welcomed a new CEO into the business. And we got really serious on making sure that we were putting the right investments in place to hit those Mission Zero targets. In some instances, that will be something like a commitment of about another $40 to $50 million across the business to hit our recycled materials targets, to make sure we're using 100% renewable energy. So after we did that, we felt really comfortable that we could start to envision what's next. How do we become restorative or positive? And this is really the vision for not only how we had been running the business in the last 23 years, so shifting from a very disconnected supply chain and a very kind of linear, wasteful model to what we hope to be in 2020, and more importantly, what we envision beyond. And this little diagram was really focused and came out of a deep dive internally that my team and I did with our global employees, where we interviewed almost a quarter of the company's population through online surveys, through deep dive interviews. We also reached out to some of our customers. We also sort of brought in the advice of people like Paul Hawken and Janine and her team. And you can see our thinking, particularly on the operations side, was really heavily influenced by Janine and her vision. So when we ask ourselves, what would it look like to transition how we think about our factory spaces, those 7 to 8 campuses, excuse me, we have around the world? What would a positive factory look like? And, we came up with this vision of a factory as a forest. And over the last 2 years, we've been working with Janine and her team to really operationalize that, to go from an idea to a pilot project to reality. Excuse me. And in that time, we also named our new mission. And this is the other important piece of it, to know that while we embrace this idea of restorative and being positive, we also wanted to put climate front and center in sort of the next phase of Interface. And we developed a model or a framework for how we're going to explore, think about, and really put the business to work to achieve the goal of reversing global warming. by focusing on zero carbon, focusing on carbon removal and utilization, thinking about how we run the business in a way that protects and restores natural sinks, and all the while trying to transition and be open to inspiring other companies to do the same. And so that's really where our thinking around Factory as a Forest fits in, this idea of how do we run the business or the operations in a way that supports the natural sinks of the business. So we started to frame out what would this actually look like in practice, not just at our business, but at other businesses who might want to adopt this thinking. And how do we really kind of vision what that looks like? So what are the types of things that we as a business might invest in, might be sensitive to, might look towards? And so we've created this plan and then released it on our website in the hope that it will spur other companies to think about this. It will share our thinking in a way that's very open source, that will drive feedback back to the business. And then we've set to work on doing some pilot projects. And in collaboration with Janine and Dana, and really led by Erin Ravallo and Jamie Dwyer, we've gotten to work on putting this thinking into practice. And they can share a lot more specifics with you on the framework. But when we think about what this idea of running a factory in a way that is just like a high-performing ecosystem, you know, I want to answer a lot of your questions on what are the benefits. And so when you imagine this in practice for us, we think about factories that will not just be reducing their impacts, but will be producing positive ones on local communities and frankly on employees. And for us, it's really given us the opportunity to imagine how we would start a very different relationship with local communities. You know, if we are not just sort of a physical space there that's trying to be less bad, but if we're a net contributor, if we're something that can support wildlife, that can support soil quality, that can support water management, that can sequester carbon by our very presence there, we think that will kind of give us a very unique and better relationship with the local communities where we work. But I also think about, and we're really excited about the benefits that it will bring to our employee population and the people who interact with us on those physical spaces. So our shippers, our vendors, our employees, our customers, because we think it will fundamentally change the employee experience on those campuses. If we are able to achieve the vision of a factory as a forest in the actual operation, it will finally bring some real interactive experience to our employees in a way that I think can actually enhance not only their experience of working there, but their well-being. So if you go back to that little chart I had with all the diagrams and you imagine a factory worker in just a more sustainable environment that has less waste or maybe uses renewable energy, their daily experience is not enriched much by the fact that we've reduced our impact as a company. But when you imagine them working in a space where we're trying to sequester carbon and filter water and support habitat, the design interventions that have to happen on a space like that are going to alter our physical spaces, are going to alter the way the campus looks and functions, and I think will provide employees with a much more immersive and positive experience on that physical space. And so I'm super excited about those being the kinds of benefits that we think about. We don't yet know how to measure those. I can imagine, you know, on the employee side, pre and post occupancy survey work, talk to them about how they feel in the space, possibly measuring the health of employees. So I'm super excited about those benefits. And so when we think about kind of what we need to say yes to this, which is yes to doing this in every factory, yes to encouraging our supply chain to adopting it, you know, all the thinking about scale, you know, we need an easily understood and digestible methodology for other manufacturers that's publicly available and open sourced. You know, we need to be able to say to people, here's the scorecard that we used at Interface. And while the assessment in terms of the high-performing ecosystem you might model your space on will be different. Here's kind of the scorecard and the rule book that you can follow. And we need people like the Biomimicry Institute and others to Biomimicry 3.8. Sorry, God, I always get the name wrong. I'm thinking in the past. But we need organizations to really help companies then interpret and design for that. So not only do we need kind of that easy protocol methodology, open sourced, we need those interpreters that are going to help companies like ours figure out how do you do the scorecard, and then how do you make progress to actually get there? How do you implement those design solutions? I think we could accelerate this thinking if we had a group of companies learning together. I mean, I know one thing that would probably help Interface move this faster and be more accountable is a group of other companies who are learning along with us and who are willing to share and sort of make that plunge into kind of the unknown together and hold each other accountable. And I think back to years ago when the World Resources Institute convened Interface and Alcoa and about 7 other companies, and we set a target, not a public target, but a target to buy more renewable energy together. And then we met on a twice annual basis and shared progress. And I really think it accelerated and held us accountable, but it also enriched the learning because we could see this going on in 4 or 5 different environments. And so that sort of model sometimes needs someone not at a public company who can be the herder and the shepherder and who can provide a little bit of funding and structure to really accelerate that. So when I think about what do we need to say yes, it's all of those things, and maybe an accelerant would be this organization that can bring together a group of committed, not just companies, other institutions, organizations who really want to test this out and advance it. You know, and I think to close this idea of what would it look like if everyone did it, I love that question because it just makes me think of how do we scale and what's the positive vision we have just beyond this factory, this company, this campus. And I think about the opportunity to redefine what a manufacturing plant looks like. That's a really interesting idea of what if everybody did it. If 5 or 6 companies were experimenting here, we could really revolutionize what that experience is for our employees and what our customers see when they show up here. And I think really inspire our supply chain, but also the companies that are nearby us in every country in the world. So imagine the opportunity of being able to bring a bunch of diversified manufacturers to our campus and say, look at what we've done here. Look at how we've redefined this. And our employees about how they feel about working in this space. And that's really exciting to sort of imagine what would it look like if everyone did it. So I think I'm exactly at 10 minutes. But I would sort of stop there and say that's our kind of quick, what we're trying to do, how we think about it, what some of the benefits are that we're thinking of, what do we think it will take to scale it or say yes, and what it might look like if it got really big and it became part of how we define the next wave of manufacturing.
Awesome. Thank you. Let me just say that Erin's not here with us.
Can you hear this, Erin?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we're missing you, Erin, but that's leadership. I mean, that's leadership in a company, and Interface has always been that. It's risk-taking, it's trying to figure out what's never been done before, and put it in a business context. As Sissel was saying, Sissel, as she was, oh, hi, Sissel. Sissel Wege is here, and she was the lone business voice yesterday saying, you know, companies are trying that positive. I mean, that's leadership in a company, and Interface has always been that. It's risk-taking, it's trying to figure out what's never been done before, and put it in a business context, as Sissel was saying. Is Sissel here? Sissel, as she was, oh, hi Sissel. Sissel Wege is here. And she was the lone business voice yesterday saying, you know, companies are trying net positive, but it's not far enough. We need pilots, and I think this is an answer to what you were hoping for. But Erin, it's so, I'm going to take that and take this recording and play it again and again, because the way you laid out the benefits, who loves this and why, is a question we always have to ask ourselves. And you put it, and I think it's really, I think it's the people. You know, it starts there. It starts with that experience. How shall we live starts with having a daily experience of having ecosystem services being produced by your place makes it a pretty good place to hang out, right? And that's right, and that's what will make everybody do it. But can you say a little bit, just internally, besides your own personal animal magnetism, how did you get a yes out of your management team to do this?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, when we got, what was really great is, and I think it's just the best tool for any person selling anything to their management team that is new and different, it's just the idea of a pilot. And I think in our case, we have to understand that Janine, you and your organization have been such a part of our history that the credibility that you guys bring, because we've delivered innovation in the business as a result of thinking about biomimicry, it gives anything attached to you such high credibility at Interface that always helps, right? But aside from that, if I were in a totally different organization that hadn't worked with you before, and we have a new management team, so we're doing some convincing. Some of them aren't, you know, haven't been here for the last 2 decades. I think the idea of a pilot project really, really helps. You know, this idea that we're going to start small, we're going to make a small investment to figure out how this works, and then we're going to scale it. I mean, pilot projects are the friend of every chief sustainability officer in the world, because it's the gateway drug for getting people to buy into something bigger, right? And so starting small, I think, is super helpful for us. But I think the other piece is being able to make this argument that our employees will be able to be immersed in this experience and we can deliver something back. It's really, really powerful, and it comes at a time when companies are increasingly being challenged to say, what is your employee experience? Whether it's a better workplace strategy, an open office, biophilic design, better, you know, benefits related to well and food and all of that. I think it's coming at a really good time for us to challenge our organization and say, the vast majority of people that we have work in dark, loud, hot spaces. Not acceptable anymore. This is a really great answer to that. And so if I were in retail or Microsoft, I'd be selling it like a retention and recruiting tool to provide high-performing spaces. In my organization, I'm saying we are going to get people out of a hot, loud, dark cave, and it's about time for that. So let's do that. And then I think it's also helped that we've been able to attach it to an investment that was already being made on the campus. And actually our CEO, I give him credit for that. He saw an opportunity to say, we're about to spend a couple $1 million, and in fact like 20 million, redoing the logistics and kind of how we think about the factory engineering and moving materials through the US factory. This is a perfect time to put this project into that context and do it all at once. And I think he saw, you know, we would be able to really accelerate and not have to have all those conversations about why is this by itself? But really, no, this should actually be a part of how we're, quote, modernizing our approach. And this is just the employee bit of that modernization. And so I think there's a way to sell this and position this in a company which really is about, you know, providing better spaces, more efficient, ability to help recruit and retain people. not to mention being able to catalog the positive ecosystem benefits associated with that.
Excellent. Thank
Awesome.
you so much.
Thank you, Erin. You can see why we love Erin.
Oh my God. Yeah.
If every company had champions like that.
Yeah. And we think your idea about the companies coming together in the center might be a great spot for that.
Yeah, we were just talking, it
Yeah.
would be an amazing thing for the center to offer and build a little consortia, get a couple Phoenix companies involved and
Yep.
as well as others. And so thank you for seeding that. We're already cooking on it.